Right, there's a lot of kind of misinformation going on for the middle part of the month. You just got all kinds of stuff being shared everywhere. So I just kind of want to break things down about what I'm seeing and what we may be able to expect throughout the middle part of February, the latter part of February, and maybe even beyond into March. And I'm an actual meteorologist. I'm certified by the American Meteorological Society. So let's break it on down. First things first, this is the pattern that we're seeing February 6th. Today, we got very cold air in the east. You can see indicated by those red, purple, and teal colors. We have warm air in Texas, indicated by yellow, orange, and red, and a lot of warm air across really the whole Rockies. You got 60s going all the way up into Canada along the Front Range. You got some Chinook winds coming down off the slopes there, warming them up. We got some warm air in Phoenix as well. So basically, what you're seeing here is a ridge in the west. The jet stream lifts up, it lets the warm air go up. The jet stream goes down in the east. That's called a trough, and that is, well, letting the cold air come down from the north. So the ridge trough pattern, that's what the jet stream does. It looks like waves, right? It goes up and down, up and down, cold, warm, cold, warm. So that's what we're seeing now. But what can we expect as we go a little bit further into February now? Can we have a more favorable track for storm systems in the Northeast, the Great Lakes? Will the West finally start to cool off? Let's take a look. So this is showing you basically the jet stream. This is the upper level winds in the atmosphere, and you can see that blue is slower, green is faster, orange is fast, and that red turning into like a brown color is the fastest. There's also a scale at the very bottom there, so you can see how things go up with wind speed. Now, that being said, you got this tube of air flowing along, and that's the jet stream. We have the ridge in the west and the trough in the east that I was talking about, and that's for today, February 6th. Let's take a look at what's going to happen as we go a little bit further. And I do want to put a little disclaimer out there. This is an ensemble model, so this is the average of 51 different little models put together. It's dangerous just showing one model because that one model run can change about every 6 hours. And when you post that on Facebook, all of a sudden you're seeing all different kinds of things that have been posted over the last several days, and it can be very confusing. So the AI is also AI enhanced, which takes a learning curve into account, which is great. So not only do we have the ensembles to kind of weed out some outlier bad data, but the AI also helps with that as well. And it's not purely AI. I mean, it just learns a little bit. It knows that, like, hey, this is bad data. Be gone with you. So that's what's happening there. Now, so overall, what we can expect here going forward is the jet stream will continue to move over to the east, right? But look how it also migrates down to the south a little bit. But right here, once we get into the middle part of the month, this is the pattern that I wanted to show you. And again, this isn't just one model putting this out. A lot of models are putting this out. So what this means is we're getting the trough back in the west. What that means, remember, the jet stream is going to go down, so the west will end up being colder. But that lifts off into the middle part of the country before going down a little bit again. Now, this pattern does have the possibility to give us storm systems that are more favorable for development in the southwestern part of the United States, moving into the plains, tapping into some of that Gulf moisture, and then moving up potentially into the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and areas like that. Compared to the pattern that we've been in most of the winter is these little sharp systems diving down out of Canada. There's just not a lot of moisture up there, so that's why we keep getting these little nickel and dime snowfall totals. Yeah, they add up to a lot when you factor in lake effect, but we haven't had many good storm systems coming on through the Great Lakes. So this might be able to give us a little bit more of a favorable potential at that. Not a guarantee, just a potential. And look how that continues, especially right here. This is the exact middle part of the month, maybe technically into the latter part of the month. This is around February 17th. We have a very good signal here for southwest to northeast and the jet stream. That cold air will be in place. We have the cold air and the snowpack on the ground. The snowpack in the state of Michigan is going to help influence the air and make it colder, which is what it does, especially with ice on the Great Lakes too. So we really struggle to warm things up unless we have a lot of warm days coming our way, which I'm not seeing a lot of. So we'll have the snowpack on the ground. We have a favorable jet stream. We got cold air in the west. We're also able to tap into Gulf moisture. It's just the recipe for a better chance of storm systems to start to head our way by the middle and latter part of the month. And then that pattern continues for quite some time, likely all the way into the end part of the month. So if I go a little further out in time here, you can see the little date stamp in the top right corner. We're going all the way into, well, late February, into the 20s range here. So that pattern could be around for a little while. And when that locks into place, that usually means repeated storm systems. Some of them may be a little bit further down to the south of us, but we have a chance at seeing something besides the Clipper systems and the lake effect that we have been seeing. So now, taking the jet stream into consideration, I want to translate that down to the surface here for you and show you the potential of some temperature activity that we may be seeing. So keep in mind what the jet stream is doing when I just showed you on the dates I showed you. So starting off the month, this is a 7-day temperature anomaly. So over the course of a whole week, you average all 7 days together. Where as a whole, temperature wise, is that week going to be? Now, granted, that means that we're smoothing out the ups and downs, right? So we will have warm periods, we will have colder periods, but as a whole, what are things looking at for that 7-day period? So remember, there was a trough in the east and we had a ridge in the west, starting with February 6th for the next couple of days. That's what this is showing here. So we have above average temperatures, likely, for the northern plains and most of Canada, which is right what I showed you at the beginning of the video. And we have those below average temperatures across the northeast, down into Florida even, and the Great Lakes. So look how that translates once we get toward the middle part of the month. Remember, I said the jet stream is sagging in the west again, which means cold air is returning to the west again. And notice those warm temperature anomalies, well, they're kind of fading away, right? So the cold air is returning, things are settling into that more favorable pattern for some potential storm development, like I was saying. Here is going right up into the last week of the month. So now we're looking at below average temperature possibilities across almost the whole northern tier of the country, with the exception of the plains. So we have that out west, we have that out east. Now notice how Texas, Oklahoma, but also down into the Gulf is showing those above average possibilities. That means that we will be having some moisture to play with as well. And that happens when storm systems exit the Rockies. They're spinning counterclockwise, so they draw up that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm pretty sure that's what we're seeing here. And then, of course, that potentially moves into the Great Lakes region in the Northeast while we have that other cold air at play. Going into March, you can see that overall temperatures are favored to be slightly below average. Now, if you're going for specifics right here, this is technically indicating about a 3 to 5 degree below normal trend for most of the Great Lakes. But we're in March. Average temperatures are going up. So 3 to 5 degrees below average. Yes, this is in Fahrenheit. 3 to 5 degrees might mean that we'll just see highs in the 30s. It doesn't mean that we're going to see snow. It just means by then things will be below average a little bit. And when averages are getting in the 40s, it doesn't mean we're going to be in the teens and 20s. It means we're likely going to be in the 30s. So again, we'll see how things play out, but I don't want you to think that this automatically means cold and snowy, because as we transition into spring, it could just mean a miserable 34-degree wet rain, right? So it's, we got to keep everything in context here. This goes out pretty far, but this is an ensemble, and I do love showing ensembles. Remember, they're 51 little models averaged together. I've been showing you the European the whole time because while it does perform well, it's not perfect, but it does perform well. I'm going to take a look at one different thing for you here really quick. So I do want to show you the climate forecast system, and this is just a different way of looking at exactly what I was showing you. It's just a different kind of set of models and how they run with different equations, so we get slightly different outcomes. So this is the climate forecast system, and like I said, we have that ridge in the west, trough in the east, and notice how it also is taking things more, back down to reality here, but it's not picking up on all the cold air in the west. Cooler for sure, but not all the cold air coming on in. While we do have below average tendencies, still favorable for the Great Lakes over toward the Northeast and maybe even the middle part of the country as well. So now we're getting into early March with the date stamp up in the top right. Remember, these are 7-day averages. It's not per day. So 7-day average is looking like we'll stay pretty cool, or at least have the possibility to stay below average into March. But look at all the warm air building in the west again on this one, and the European didn't pick this up. These models can also fluctuate as we go out in time, but overall, notice how it's still picking up for the eastern part of the country, the better chances of being below average. So it's something that we'll have to take into consideration. Again, we have a lot of snow on the ground across really the whole Great Lakes region, and that snowpack matters. So this is a really cool website to play around on. You can search NOHRSC, SNOW, which stands for National Operation Hydrologic Remote Sensing Center. I'm not perfect either, okay? National Operational Hydrologic Remote Sensing Center, snowfall information. So this is showing the modeled snow depth across the whole country right now. So obviously the mountain tops and the Rockies have it, and we have a lot going on in the Great Lakes in the Northeast. So I can zoom in here just a little bit for you, and what we're seeing across parts of the Upper Peninsula and those bright pink areas are 40 to 50 inches, about 4 feet of snow on the ground, maybe even a little bit more. But this is quite a bit of snow. Even down into West Michigan, we're getting into the 12 to 16 inch range. We have a lot of 4 to 8 inch ranges out there, and a little less, of course, around the Great Lakes Bay region and the eastern part of northern lower. But this is a good snowpack, and the snowpack has a lot of different things we can look at it. We can look at snow temperature. This is a big one. So snow temperature is cold. Where you see the red down to the bottom there, that indicates that it's 32 degrees. That's the snowpack temperature, and that means it's melting. So anything below that is very cold. Where you see those darker blues around much of the middle part of Michigan over into Wisconsin and Canada, those darker blues are actually a snowpack temperature that's all the way down in the lower teens in some cases. So not only do we have snow on the ground, it doesn't instantly melt. You have to warm the whole snowpack from 14 degrees to 32 degrees before it even starts to melt. That's why sometimes the sun comes out and nothing happens, because it's been brutally cold outside. So we have to warm up that snowpack. But also the snow and the ice can influence air temperatures drastically. Just like how in the winter, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Superior warm things up right by the coastline, right? We get less snow down there because of the warm water. In the spring, we have lake breezes. You have those coastal towns that are freezing cold still, even though it's like 70 degrees inland, because the water is cold. So the snow and the water has an influence on the air temperatures around it. So we're not going to immediately spike those numbers up into the 60s and 70s until we can get rid of the snowpack. Now, another cool thing we can look at is the snowpack, how much water it contains, because we know there's a difference between dry, powdery snow, heavy, wet snow, ice, right? So, like, how much water is in all of that? And this is why we have flooding concerns in the spring, because it all melts. So, it's really like you're getting inches of rain all at once when it all melts at once. So here's what we're looking at in terms of the pink in the Upper Peninsula. We have 10 to 12, maybe even 14 inches of water that is locked up in that snow in some cases. Where you see kind of those mid blue tones, that's about 3 to 4, 3 to 5 inches. And then what you see by Flint, Port Huron, Detroit, generally 1 to 2, maybe some areas a little more than 2 inches of water in that snowpack on the ground. So picture, you're melting all of this, especially if we get a system that's bringing rainfall in. You're talking about just inches and inches of water coming. That'd be like the equivalent of the summertime having a 4 to 6 inch rainstorm coming your way. You're going to see a little bit of flooding out of something like that. So lots of cool things you can see on this map, but it really influences how we can experience seasons and temperature anomalies as a whole. So again, with all the snow on the ground and the ice on the Great Lakes, more cold temperatures possibly coming, that means that we're going to keep things on the cooler side. Now, if we start to warm things up, we have maybe a whole week of warmer temperatures, we will melt a significant amount of snow off. It's still going to take more than that for the UP, but when we melt everything off in the lower part of the state, that's when you can start getting some of those warmer numbers. It's going to take a while to melt everything off to the north, but I just want you to be aware that if you see your app or your models spitting out 50s, it's probably not going to happen unless there is a heck of a south wind to drag that warm air up before it has a chance to be cooled off by the snow. So lots of things going on. That's what we're looking at. Again, it's not meaning that we're going to have Arctic outbreaks for the next 2 months. It's also not meaning that we're going to be really warm. Likely to be close to average, slightly below average, but the possibility for snow systems or rain systems combined with snow systems is going to be increasing for the state of Michigan for the middle part of February, likely through most of March.